I work at an abandoned ice cream factory, something still lives inside. I never thought I'd be one of those people posting in r/no sleep. Most of the stories here always felt like exaggerated creepypastas written for entertainment. But after what happened at my job, I can't keep this bottled up anymore. If I don't share it, I feel like the thing inside that factory might come looking for me again. Let me back up. In March of this year, I was desperate for work. Bills were piling up, and I'd just been let go from my warehouse job. A buddy told me about a temp position at an old ice cream factory on the edge of town. It shut down in the late 90s after a series of accidents that nobody in the town wanted to talk about. The building was bought by a logistics company, and my job was supposed to be simple: catalog old storage rooms, clean out machinery, and prep the place for renovation. Sounds easy, right? The factory was massive. 4 floors, a basement that stretched forever, and hallways that seemed to lead nowhere. The walls were stained with decades of melted sugar, cream, and rust. The smell was the worst part: sour milk mixed with something sharp and metallic, like blood. On my first night, the supervisor, a guy named Leon, handed me a flashlight and a checklist. "Don't go near the old freezer tunnels," he said. "Why?" I asked. He looked at me for a long time before muttering, "Just, don't." Of course, that only made me curious. The freezer tunnels. The factory had a network of underground freezer corridors where they used to store bulk ice cream. The temperature control system had been shut off for years, but somehow the air down there was still unnaturally cold. My breath fogged in front of me, even though it was spring. The walls were lined with metal doors that looked like morgue drawers, each labeled with faded chalk: Vanilla 01, Chocolate 07, Strawberry 12. But the doors didn't just lead to small freezers, they opened into tunnels, long passageways of frost-coated concrete. That's when I heard it. A sound like wet chewing, echoing faintly from somewhere deep inside. Slow. Rhythmic. Something was eating. I told myself it was rats. Or maybe some animal that had found its way inside. But then I saw the prints. On the icy ground were smeared handprints, too large to be human. 5 fingers, each ending in a point like claws. They dragged along the frost as if whatever made them had been crawling on all 4s. I backed out quickly, heart hammering, and slammed the freezer door shut. The smiling posters. The next day, I was assigned to clear the main production floor. The walls were still covered in old marketing posters, smiling kids holding ice cream cones, wide cartoon mascots with exaggerated grins. But the posters weren't normal. Some of the kids had extra teeth crudely drawn in, like someone had scribbled them on with a black marker. Others had their eyes scratched out. One had been altered so the cone wasn't ice cream anymore, it looked like a severed tongue dripping red. At first, I thought it was vandals. But when I turned away and looked back, the posters had changed again. The smiles seemed wider. The eyes were following me. I tore one down in panic, but beneath the paper, the same smiling face was printed directly on the wall, layer after layer of posters beneath, each more distorted than the last. The accidents. By the 3rd week, I started digging into the factory's history. Between 1985 and 1997, there were at least 14 reported deaths on site, workers crushed by machinery, children wandering in and freezing to death, one man supposedly falling into a mixing vat and never being recovered. But the newspaper clippings were vague. No lawsuits. No official investigations. Just silence. The creepiest part. Every obituary mentioned the same thing: they died with a smile. Leon's warning. One night, Leon caught me snooping near the freezer tunnels again. He grabbed my wrist so hard it left bruises. "You hear it, don't you?" he whispered. "Hear what?" "The eating. The laughing. That thing was here before the factory. They just fed it." He wouldn't say more. But his eyes, he looked broken, like someone who hadn't slept in years. The thing in the dark. It was my last night on the job when everything went wrong. The power cut out around 2 a.m., plunging the entire factory into darkness. My flashlight flickered and died. The only light came from a faint glow seeping under the freezer doors, a sickly yellow, like old teeth. And then I heard it. That chewing again, closer this time. Wet, slurping sounds echoing down the tunnel. Followed by laughter, high-pitched, childish giggles, dozens of them overlapping. I ran. But the hallways didn't make sense anymore. Every turn led me deeper into the factory. Posters lined the walls, all of them smiling, all of them with too many teeth. I swear I heard the paper rippling, like the mouths were whispering. Finally, I reached the production floor. The old ice cream machines were running. I swear on my life, they were churning, dripping thick white liquid into cones. Only it wasn't ice cream. The smell told me it was something else. Something rotten. Something human. And standing behind the machines was a tall, pale figure. Its skin looked stretched, almost melting, dripping down like soft serve. Its face was a warped parody of a smile, no lips, just a row of exposed teeth that curved up to its temples. It raised one dripping hand and pointed at me. Hungry, it gurgled. That's when I blacked out. Aftermath. I woke up outside the factory, lying on the pavement, covered in frost. My phone said only 5 minutes had passed, but my body felt like it had been days. I quit immediately. Leon won't answer my calls. And last week, I drove past the factory, except it isn't abandoned anymore. The lights are on. The parking lot is full of cars. And there's a brand new banner across the entrance. Grand reopening. Try our new flavors, they'll make you smile. It's been a month since I first posted about my job at the abandoned ice cream factory. I swore I'd never step foot inside that place again. But something's been gnawing at me, literally, in my dreams. Every night, I hear that wet chewing. I wake up with the taste of sour milk in my mouth, sometimes with my teeth aching like I've been grinding them until they cracked. I'll find small ice crystals on my pillow. And the worst part? I can still hear the laughter. Faint, like kids playing outside my window at 3 a.m. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. So last weekend, I went back. The parking lot. The factory isn't abandoned now. Like I said, the company reopened it, rebranded it, and apparently scrubbed away decades of dust and death. When I pulled into the lot, it was buzzing with families, kids running around with balloons, bright new signs everywhere. Scoopy's Ice Dreamland. It looked normal. Happy, even. Parents were laughing, kids were licking cones, and a giant mascot in a suit, an oversized smiling scoop of ice cream with googly eyes, was handing out samples. But then I looked closer. The kids' mouths. Too wide. Too many teeth. Their laughter wasn't right, it didn't rise and fall naturally. It was synchronized. Like they were all laughing from the same throat. And the ice cream they were eating, it wasn't melting. It just sat there, perfect, even under the sun. Inside the factory. I walked in, pretending to be just another customer. The inside had been completely remodeled, pastel walls, neon lights, a gift shop. But I recognized the bones of the building. The same long corridors. The same production floor beneath the surface. They'd covered it all with a carnival mask. I followed a tour group down a hallway. The guide, a young woman with a frozen smile, told us about the historic charm of the old factory. She bragged about how they still used the original freezers, upgraded with state-of-the-art technology. But when we passed one of the metal freezer doors, I swear I heard scratching from inside. Slow. Deliberate. Like fingernails dragging down steel. The kids giggled. None of the adults seemed to notice. The employee. When the group moved on, I lagged behind. That's when someone grabbed my arm. It was a man in a hairnet and apron, eyes sunken, skin pale as frost. His name tag said Frank. "You shouldn't be here," he hissed. "Do you hear it too?" I whispered. His eyes darted to the cameras in the corners of the ceiling. "It's always hungry. Always. They told us to keep it fed. It likes the children best, but," he swallowed hard. "Sometimes it takes us too." Before I could ask more, a supervisor appeared. Frank went silent, plastered on a fake smile, and shuffled away. The factory floor. I managed to slip away from the tour and sneak into the production area. It was almost exactly as I remembered it, only cleaner, shinier. The machines were running, churning out perfect swirls of ice cream. But the smell hit me again. Sweet at first, then sour, then coppery, like blood soaked into sugar. I peered into one of the vats. It wasn't ice cream. It was flesh. Pink and white, ground down, churned smooth. Something twitched in the mixture, like a finger that hadn't dissolved yet. And standing behind the vat was that same tall, melting figure I saw on my last night. Its stretched skin glistened under fluorescent lights, dripping in thick folds. Its jaw split wider than ever, teeth grinning up to its ears. It saw me. And it smiled. The chase. The machines shut off. The lights flickered. Suddenly, the factory was empty, no workers, no kids, just silence and the drip 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 of melting flesh. The posters on the walls began to ripple, their smiling mouths opening, whispering. "Smile. Smile. Smile." I ran. The halls twisted again, bending in impossible directions. Every corner led me deeper, closer to the freezer tunnels. My breath froze in the air. My fingers went numb. Behind me, I heard the chewing. Faster now. Eager. When I reached the tunnels, the freezer doors were open. Inside, shadows shifted. Shapes too big to be human crawled along the walls. I saw dozens of eyes, all glowing that same sickly yellow. And the laughter, it wasn't just one voice anymore. It was hundreds. Thousands. A chorus of giggling children. Escape. I don't remember how I got out. One moment, I was sprinting through the cold, the next, I was outside, collapsing on the pavement. The parking lot was full again. Families smiling, kids eating ice cream, like nothing had happened. But when I looked at the cones, I saw it clearly this time. A finger. A human tooth. A tongue frozen in the swirl of vanilla. No one else reacted. They just kept eating, smiling, laughing. Now. I can't sleep anymore. My reflection in the mirror looks wrong, my smile lingers too long. Sometimes, I hear faint giggling when I open my freezer at home. And yesterday, I found a flyer taped to my door. Now hiring, Scoopy's Ice Dreamland. Come join the family. The paper smelled sweet. Like vanilla. Like death. I didn't want to write this. After part 2, I deleted Reddit from my phone. I tried to convince myself none of it happened, that I imagined the figure, the flesh in the vats, the laughing children with too many teeth. But pretending doesn't work anymore. Because now the factory has followed me home. The first signs. It started small. A faint smell of sugar in my apartment, even though I don't keep sweets around. Then the freezer door would creak open on its own, frost gathering on the walls inside. I'd wake up at night with my jaw aching, my pillow damp, and when I looked in the mirror, sometimes I'd swear my smile was wider than it should be. But the worst part was the laughter. Not loud, not obvious. Just under everything, like static in the air. When I showered, it was behind the hiss of water. When I tried to sleep, it was layered beneath the hum of my fridge. Dozens of children. Laughing. The survivor. A week ago, someone slipped an envelope under my door. No return address. Inside was a single page, handwritten. If you've seen it, meet me where the river bends by the old mill. Midnight. F. I knew who it was. Frank. The pale employee I'd spoken to before the supervisor shut him up. I went. Frank looked worse than before, eyes sunken, skin sagging, teeth chattering even though the night was warm. He smoked 3 cigarettes in a row before he could talk. Do you know why this factory was built here? He asked. I shook my head. This land isn't new. It belonged to the Lenape tribes before settlers came. And they had stories about something in the ground. A spirit of hunger, buried deep in the cold earth. They said it would whisper to children in their dreams, draw them out into the forest, and eat them. I felt my stomach twist. You think that's what's in the freezers? Frank laughed, a broken, humorless sound. No. I know it is. The first owners of the factory built it here for a reason. They made a deal. They fed it what it wanted, and in return, it gave them prosperity. Sweetness. Success. I remembered the old clippings. 14 deaths. Died with a smile. How do you know all this? I asked. Frank looked at me with hollow eyes. Because I've fed it. I've carried bodies to the tunnels. I've watched it eat. The missing. The next day, I checked local news archives. I wish I hadn't. Over the last 2 months, since Scoopy's Ice Dreamland opened, there have been at least 11 missing children in the county. No suspects, no leads. Police reports say the kids wandered off from parks, malls, even their own backyards. But I recognized their faces. I'd seen them at the factory. Holding cones that didn't melt. Smiling too wide. The dream. 2 nights ago, I had the worst dream of my life. I was back in the freezer tunnels. The walls pulsed like flesh, frost cracking over something that moved beneath the surface. The freezer doors opened one by one, and the children poured out, hundreds of them, skin pale, eyes glowing yellow. Their mouths were full of jagged teeth, grins splitting their faces. They surrounded me, chanting in sing-song voices. Smile, smile, smile. And then the tall figure appeared, dripping and melting, towering over the children. Its mouth stretched open, impossibly wide, and I saw what was inside. Not a throat. Not flesh. Just a tunnel. A hole into endless dark. It whispered. You belong to me now. I woke up screaming. Frost was on my sheets. And in my freezer at home, there was a cone waiting for me. Vanilla. It hadn't been there the night before. The ritual. I called Frank again. Begged him to tell me how to stop it. He finally cracked. You don't stop it, he said. You join it, or you die. But then his voice lowered. There's an old ritual. The tribes used to perform it once a generation, to put it back to sleep. Fire. Salt. Blood. That's the only way. Burn the tunnels. Seal them with salt. Offer a sacrifice. My hands were shaking. A sacrifice? Frank didn't answer. He just hung up. That was 3 days ago. Yesterday, I read his obituary. Frank Harris, 42, died suddenly at his residence. Cause of death, unknown. The factory expands. Tonight, I drove past the factory again. It's bigger now. There's a new wing being built, rides, attractions, like a theme park. Dozens of families lined up outside, kids tugging at their parents' hands, eager for ice cream. The lights were blinding. The music cheerful. But I could see it. Behind the neon facade, behind the pastel colors and cartoon mascots, the walls were breathing. Slow, steady, in and out. And the air smelled like sugar and rot. The thing beneath the ground is waking up. And the more kids they feed it, the stronger it gets. Now. I can't keep running from this. If what Frank said is true, if the ritual is real, then maybe there's still a chance to stop it. But that means going back inside. Into the freezer tunnels. With fire. With salt. With blood. I don't know if I'll make it out. But if I don't post again, and you hear about a fire at Scoopy's Ice Dreamland on the news, know that I tried. And if the factory survives, don't eat the ice cream. I went back to the factory last night. I brought salt, gasoline, and a lighter. My hands were shaking the whole time. The freezer tunnels were waiting for me, breathing like lungs. The walls dripped frost. The laughter of children echoed from every direction. I poured the salt across the floor, splashed the walls with gasoline. The air grew thick, sweet, suffocating. Then it appeared, tall, melting, smiling. Its mouth opened wide, and I saw rows of teeth stretching into endless dark. Smile, it whispered. I lit the fire. The tunnels screamed. The posters curled and blackened. The machines shrieked as flames spread. The figure lunged toward me, skin dripping like wax, but the fire ate through it, peeling its smile apart. The last thing I remember was the children's laughter turning into screams. When I woke up, I was outside, covered in soot. The factory was gone, nothing but a smoldering crater. No bodies, no machines, no sign it had ever existed. But last night, in my freezer, I found something waiting. A cone of vanilla. And it was still smiling. The end.